of the Golden Boot Podcast. It's your boy, Pooh Bear. I got Aunt Betty Murphy,
What's
Daniel T.
happening?
Williams, and Chris. You got a little light shirt on us? Nah, that's not Chris tonight, everybody. We have a special guest in the building. Not just a guy, but the guy, Preston Guy. Welcome to the Golden Boot, Preston. How you doing this evening?
What's good, guys? Thanks for having me.
Hey, we wouldn't have another guest, a better guest for our first time. We appreciate it. Um, a lot has happened going into this week. Spring football is at an all-time high. Things are humming, and we had some special guests this week. Coach Brian Kelly welcomed in our newest coach, possibly TM7, Tyrann Mathieu to practice. First off, thoughts. What did you guys think of all the press
Yeah.
around Tyrann being there?
Yeah, so it's real cool to have alumni like Tyrann Mathieu around who are just such big names. And I mean, quite frankly, Tyrann Mathieu at this point is a bit of a legend. I think no doubt first ballot Hall of Fame career is what he's heading to. Super Bowl winner and his career at LSU. What always stands out to me looking back in retrospect, it just kind of stings like thinking about how in comparison to other Heisman seasons we've seen and non-Heisman seasons we've seen, how unspectacular Robert Griffin III's Heisman year was by comparison. I don't want to take it away. Like, great season, but compared to even guys like the Joe Burrow year, how there were three quarterbacks who each had a better season than him. We've seen so much of that. It's like, man, how did he not win the Heisman? That's my first thought with him is like, oh, he didn't even come close. And, that I've seen a lot of football. I've never seen a defensive performance that remarkable. It's insane. Second thought is, how special is it, LSU as a program, to have guys that you kicked off the team? You kicked him to the curb.
Right.
You sent him home packing and cost him millions.
Yep.
And debate all you want about whether compliance was too strict or whether they didn't give him the support you want, all you want. But at the end of the day, you kicked him to the curb, and you know what? He loves this program.
Yeah.
And he hadn't said much of a negative thing since he left LSU. And now he's given $1 million to the program, got his face plastered all over everything. Good for him. Good situation. I think it says quite a bit about the program to have him there. Watching him at practice, that guy ain't watching like, an alum enjoying it. He looks like he wants to be a ball coach. So we'll see. I'm sure once he hangs up the helmet, he'll get the fast track to whatever he wants to do in his career.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And I think another thing that's very beneficial for LSU is the fact that he played for your defensive coordinator for the past couple seasons. So at the time when you're coming in spring training and you're working on installs and you're working on things of that nature, you got a guy who knows the vocabulary, who knows what Matt House wants. He knows how he's thinking. So you basically have another coach. Like, I know we're joking about the coach thing, but while he's there, he basically is a coach because he knows just as much as this coaching staff does about what Matt House wants to do with this defense. So you basically have a guy that the players are going to respect. The players are going to want to kind of take the knowledge that they can soak up from him. So having a guy who knows what Matt House wants to do, and he is that same guy that the players want to listen to, is a very big benefit for LSU.
For sure.
I would also say, Tyrann Mathieu, to a lot of those guys, even to myself, he's a living legend. A lot of those guys grew up watching him play, making help a whole bunch of plays for the most part. So just being able to talk to him and ask him questions and to pick his brain and him give them feedback, is awesome. And not only that, what Kelly is trying to bring back to LSU is the swagger. And why not bring the person who has all the swagger?
Well, have you seen his dance moves? I mean, I'd say the swagger's already there. Just if I see him on that 360 thing one more time, look, the drip, you gotta respect it.
Preston, stop it, bro.
Look, dog, you're the one sitting there talking about swagger and Brian Kelly, man. I mean, he's been described as a lot of things. I don't know people talking about his drip too much, but
No.
that Tesla he drives is pretty sweet.
Yeah, what I can tell you is, I mean, Kelly can dress. Kelly he got drip. You know what I'm saying? I like.
Yeah,
You know, he got a
he's
nice
yeah.
he got a nice taste in cars and everything like that. You know,
Yeah.
he got it. But I did want to say something too about your comment about Tyrann. You said LSU kind of kicked him to the curve.
Not really, kind of. They did.
I wouldn't say they kicked him to the curve. You know, he kind of did some things himself. You know, for the most part. But the
Sure.
good thing about it, you know, he was able to come back, and not only that, be a prime example of, hey, you know, you can fall from grace, but at the same time, you get back, you focus up, and hey, you can
Right.
become the man again. So
Yeah, one of the best redemption stories in sports. For
ever,
sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we actually
Absolutely.
talked about redemption and his redemption story week 1
Yep.
or episode 1 of our
Yeah.
podcast.
Yep.
So, and Preston kind of talked about it. Future
Hey,
and coaching.
hey, Pooh Bear, real quick.
Go ahead.
Hey, shout out to everybody in the chat. We see you. Yeah, we see y'all in there.
But yeah, hey, but like I was saying, future and coaching.
Oh, I mean, for sure.
So his speech, walking around the field, talking to the guys, his demeanor, it's just everything about him says he's going to be coaching in the hopefully. No offense to Coach Steeple or Coach Cooks, but if you got TM7 as an opportunity to be a coach, I'm going to give it a look. You know?
Well, why you definitely give it a look, but worth noting. I mean, it's not like LSU is going to hire him as their DB coach first job
Right,
out of
right,
the NFL.
yeah,
He's going to have to put in some dues. Maybe he comes as like some sort of assistant analyst type role, kind of like what Kevin Falk did, and work his way into it. But no doubt he's going to have to, put in his dues. I mean, because playing and coaching, very different things. A lot of guys struggle to communicate. To them, these things came so naturally that they didn't know necessarily how to break it down to the basics and communicate that. And we'll just have to see if Tyrann does that. I'll tell you what, day one, he's going to have respect at the highest level of whoever he's coaching. And based on all his tweets and attitudes and all that good stuff, he's going to get into coaching, and whatever he chooses to do, he'll have the fast track to that. They're not going to, put him on the standard procedure to working his way up.
Right. All right.
Wait, let me ask you this, Preston. So if he doesn't come in as a DB coach, I mean, what do you bring him in as? Like a recruiting
analyst off some
okay.
sort of off the field something. You can get creative with what you want. I mean, like Kevin Falk was like player personnel something, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you want, you would bring them in off the field. But I'm not even sure that LSU would be the only spot. There might be some schools interested in giving him a assistant coaching on the field coaching job as his first gig. And would he take an off the field over an on the field? We'll have to see.
And if I'm LSU, I'm trying to wrap him up.
Does he have his master's? Can he come be a grad assistant?
I don't think he has his master's. I mean, yeah, he could be a grad assistant. I don't want to throw that out there, but
something.
Absolutely, yeah. They could find a spot for him for sure, but you're not going to hand a guy who's never coached down a football, an on the field position at a school like LSU. LSU's just too prestigious for stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, what is Ed Reed's title at Miami? Because I mean, he's like what the wheel rim checker. Is your chain long enough, coach?
Yeah. He's got like that Matthew McConaughey title, like Minister of Culture. What?
Listen, I don't. You whatever you Tyrann Matthew, whatever you need to be, we need to call you. Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
You don't let Florida get him. That's all you do. You don't let Florida take him.
You just call him 7 and just let him do whatever he wants to do.
Exactly.
But put it like this: if he ever does put together a resume where you really want him, I'm sure LSU will get him, no matter what.
Travis, that I'm not even going to even entertain. Does he?
That's funny.
Now I tell you what, Miles is he looks great holding the clipboard. On to the next.
Wow.
You say that, but look, man, I'm telling you, Miles Brennan's going to get a chance to compete for the starting job.
Everybody's going to get a chance to compete.
Yeah, I mean,
you're going to get a chance, but I mean,
no one has this job locked up, and nobody's locked out from this job either.
Yeah.
No, you're 100%. Nothing we trust.
Yeah.
So and that's what we trust. You stuck on
Look,
that
man,
Nuss. He is
Nuss
stuck
has an
on Nuss.
opportunity to compete for the starting job. I mean, the only one that would really surprise me is Walker Howard because of the just the scenario. Now, it wouldn't surprise Walker Howard's actually your best quarterback on the roster. What
I
would
think he
surprise
is.
me is if
Wow.
they said, "Look, I don't care about the injuries. I don't care that you need to put on weight. I don't care that all that stuff," and they just said, "Get in there anyways." That would surprise me. But I could see Nuss. Nuss was very undisciplined last year. I mean, he was doing a lot of crazy stuff. I tweeted this maybe 50 times. It's like every single throw is 4th and 13, and you're down by 4 with a minute to go with him.
Exactly.
Why
Yeah.
are you doing that crazy stuff? Just play fundamental football.
I mean,
Check
he's
down.
an all or nothing guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, and that's the thing, you don't want to take that away from him because that's what makes him great. But
Yeah.
you kind of want to
But
tame it a little bit. You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, I'm not saying don't be a gunslinger. Be a gunslinger, but dude, Brett Favre checked it down. You know what I mean? Like
It takes
Brett
time.
Favre wasn't throwing for the fences on every single throw.
Hey, you remember that time that Nuss threw that behind the back pass against UCLA?
Nuss? No, that was all right. I see what you're saying. That was Max Johnson. Okay, all right. Ha, ha, ha.
Okay. All right. Outside of Tyrann Mathieu, we also had Clyde came back and Thaddeus Moss.
Yeah.
So I know that welcoming players back didn't happen much under Coach Miles. Ed kind of brought that back up. I'm happy to see. I'm happy to see that Coach Kelly is doing the same.
Embracing some alma mater. Yeah.
How much does that do you guys think that helps with the the culture around LSU
Yeah.
around the locker room?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great thing for culture, especially with so much newness on this team. I was cracking jokes. I said, it seems like listening to media and people talking about it, I've heard more names stumbling than any other offseason yet, just because, like we've talked about on Spaces a few times, there's just under 50 new names and then a whole new coaching staff in Brad Davis, and there's just a lot of newness, and you really need something to embrace some cohesion for the team. So good for Kelly for embracing that, and good for LSU for having such a passionate alumni base. I've said this a number of times. I'm not certain there are half a dozen schools with the type of just passionate alumni base that LSU has. I mean, a lot of these guys graduate and they're huge fans for years to come, their entire life. I mean, all sorts of guys I talk to. Matt Mock watches every game still. Flynn, you hear him involved. We already know about Tyrann Mathieu, how passionate he is about it. They just kind of fall in love with their schools, and there's a lot of guys who are just there as a business transaction. They're there because it's mutually beneficial for both parties, and it seems like LSU certainly has a lot of alumni who aren't there for that reason, who are there passionately loving the school, and it shows when you have that kind of NFL presence there this weekend. So kudos to Coach Kelly for bringing in some cohesion there. It seems like he's a sharp fellow catching on to that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I would also go ahead. My bad. Go ahead, bro.
I was just gonna say, he said cohesion, but I also think that whenever you got all these new coaches and a lot of new players, you bring in these alumni who know what the standard is for LSU football. You know what I mean? So you have them to kind of show and kind of let the players know that this is the standard. Like we know your coaches have a standard for you, but the former players have a standard for what this program should be. The last couple of years hasn't been that, so we want y'all to go back and set the standard for what it should be, and they're there to show what the standard is.
And not only that, look at the guys you're bringing back. You're bringing back Tyrann Mathieu, who was on that 2011 football team. Probably one of the best defensive teams of all time, as for sure for LSU. And then you bring back Clyde, who's on 2019, one of the best offensives that we've probably seen. So I mean that's great. But not only that, guys, does it look like Clyde kind of grew a little bit, or is Matt House just that short? Y'all see that? But now, man, it's good to see those guys, come back to LSU, and let everybody know, man. Look, we love our team. They're Louisiana guys also, and we want to see our team win. So, big ups to them.
All right. So speaking of, the team, Coach Kelly thinks he's doing. Preston, I know you've been fully involved with, a coaching regime that we had. We've all been around or had eyes on the last regime, and then now, differences in the coaching staff. Um, and I
I'm,
know you kind of mentioned this, but attention to detail.
Yep.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm gonna give two examples of things that really stand out to me. Now, watching these practice films, it's really difficult to tell one practice from another. It all kind of just looks like football, like that's a drill they're doing for balance. Okay, now they're working on that. What really kind of makes a difference in these things is where does the coach pull a player to the side and says, "Look, son, you're taking a false step there. Okay, you're going backwards. You already lost on your first step. You take a forward step there." Those little tiny things that make a dramatic difference in your player's performance. Just the little things like that. You don't really get that from watching the film. You don't really get that from being on the sideline, although shout out to Coach Kelly for giving extended media access for the first time in 20 plus years where we've had media actually out there for an entire practice. He elaborated that he's doing that so he can get a better feel for how the coaching staff does things and things of that matter. What stood out to me is the off the field discipline that he's being much more strict on. It seems like a core value of his is that if you're disciplined off the field, you're going to be disciplined on the field and so on and so forth. So he wants it in all aspects of your life. It seems like he wants to build, great football players. You try to make you a better man and a football player. That seems to be a theme he's going for. On the field, like I said, it's hard for me myself to catch these details because it's never about the public, the drill, the whatever it may be. Seems like they're doing a lot more rotation than you typically would, but I also think that that's because everything's brand new. Who knows? Like, who really should be your starter? Who really should be the first guy? And you really need to mix things up a lot right now to figure out where guys fit. It's more of a necessity than a style, I think. Miles Brennan gave an answer in an interview. I think it was yesterday. Actually, yeah, it was yesterday. And he's talking about how he wasn't used to the head coach having that quarterbacking background, like offensive background. And he talked about things like balance, footwork, arm delivery, just real nitty gritty details that I know for a fact no LSU football coach has been able to do for the last 15 years. No head coach, at least, in terms of like really teaching your quarterback some football things. And the things he were naming were pretty granular, small details. And in general, that's what Coach Kelly says he's really working on right now is fundamentals, core, nucleus of football, building your foundation, wrapping up on that tackle, taking the right step, understanding your coverage, making right decisions, and then they're going to open it up and get more advanced. So that's kind of what I've noticed is a lot more, first off, breadth of knowledge from the head coach, knowing more positions and more little things in football, like a quarterback's footwork. But secondly, also a stronger focus on the elementary details of football, which, sometimes get a little polished over as you try to move on to advanced scheme and attacking this system and pay tempo, those kind of things.
Yeah. I would also say too, I mean, winning a national championship and being great, that just doesn't just happen by coincidence. You have to be intentional about it. Whenever you talk about doing things right off the field, that's that's what makes great players, in my opinion. Once you do the little things well, and then everything else will be able to start to add up. You won't jump off sides. You'll pay attention to the guy's shoulder. You'll look at the ball. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad. We have lacked discipline. Especially the last two seasons. So it's good to see somebody get back in there who's going to, demand and expect great things from our guys. And hopefully, that transition to the football field.
This comment's got me triggered. Great question.
Yeah, I think when I say attention to detail, if you listen to any of the players talk about the SWAT team that Brian Kelly implemented for accountability, and just the just the things that on a day-to-day basis that they have to, they're required to do, do the questionnaire about your body. You got to make this meeting, got to make this meal, and you're penalized for every little thing. You're penalized if you don't do. And
Right.
so that's the attention to detail I was talking about. Because whenever you are in the game and it's fourth and one, and you need to make sure you don't jump off sides on the D line. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things, they don't just happen. In practice, they don't just happen when that week in practice, or that day on game day. You have to instill all of that discipline, and that's the kind of things that he's doing with the SWAT team. And even the way they practice, Preston, that way he said that they're not practicing 2-3 hours. They're doing everything a short amount of time, trying to be efficient with everything that they do. That's the kind of habits you need to build to be a championship team.
And I would say just from watching the tempo of the practice too, man, they're moving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're not wasting time. They're going from drill to drill. They're moving.
Everything's intentional though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? Another thing I noticed is that it seems to be a little more physical, a little more demanding of a practice. We all know Ogeron was famous for the not so intense practices, which he learned from Pete Carroll. There's an argument for freshness, and then there's also an argument for if you want
softness.
tough guys to know how to tackles and stuff like that. You know how you learn tackling? By tackling.
Exactly.
You're gonna have to be physical to a certain extent. Eventually something's going to show up. Now, I think when you got a team of dudes who know how to play football and you're ready to roll, and fresh legs probably become more important. Right. But this is spring. You got a lot of new dudes.
And not only that, you got a lot of young guys too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of young guys. Look, let me ask you this too, Preston. Whenever it comes to looking at, of course, you followed the team for a long time, and you've probably noticed in transition from strength coach to strength coach. Have the guys looked better than what they looked before? Shay Watt?
It's too soon to really give anybody credit on this. Okay. I'm not. I refuse to, because the fact of the matter is, weight room is a years-long cycle to build guys. We'll know 4 years from now when that offensive line, when Fitzgerald West is an All-American, we'll know. Okay, when Emory Jones comes in and all that baby fat's gone and he's lean and healthy, we'll know. Okay,
man, but I could look at a lot of those guys right now, and I can tell, man, it's 3 months.
One who stands out in particular is John Emory. Dude's gotten built, man. He looks like a whole new player out there now. He's probably had a lot of time away from just to work out and get there. I just hope that quickness has stayed there, because he is a thick boy out there, and he looks like he can move, but looking like he can move in practice versus like when you strap it up for a scrimmage. We'll see.
Well, I'll say this too though. I think one of the biggest problems in the past few seasons under Moffitt wasn't necessarily the strength, but the conditioning. You know what I mean? With our guys being tired at the end of the games, at the beginning of the season and stuff like that, you really won't know how much, Jacob Flint has his handprint on this team until you kind of see how that kind of stuff plays out also.
Yeah, and then the mental toughness too. A lot of times, man, we're going against, those guys in the trenches of other SEC teams, and we're getting punched in the mouth. People are tired of seeing that. You'll
have to see. And look, I'm gonna tell you, year one's gonna be you really cannot evaluate a strength and conditioning coach in 1 year. I mean, maybe some things go in a positive direction, but it's really unfair to judge it, because these things just take so long.
That's like judging a recruiting class after 1 year, bro.
It's not even. It's worse than that, dude. It's way worse than a recruiting. Like, as a recruiting class, you can at least tell if there's some talent, if the dudes are doing some things. Like Derek Stingley Jr. year one was a pretty good. Like, okay, yeah, no, I guess they were right on him. But strength and conditioning, it just takes so long to do anything, man. I'll say this, talking to Brian Driscoll, my guy who covered Notre Dame, he says Jacob Flint's real big into analytics and data and technology with this stuff. And I definitely think that's the direction you need to go with sports in general nowadays. If there's a study that says this particular exercise had this result, go into it, buy in,
Look, strength and conditioning, bro. I don't think it'd take 4 years, honestly. Because guys, it takes you 3 months to get in football shape. As someone who played college sports, it takes you 3 months. Once you get in shape, you're in shape. It don't take you 4 years. So I think whenever they line up the first game of the season, when we go against Florida State, and we can see what the trench is going to look like, the physicalness of it, those guys, you can already tell the difference. You just said it. John Emery, he looks great. He looks awesome. They've been busting it.
But do you think John Emery's progress was just the last, say, 90 days?
No, I mean,
Yeah,
he's had an entire season to get
Right.
ready. But I think with the spring, with the summertime, which is where champions are made in the summertime, once the first game of the season starts, I think then you'll be able to tell. I don't think it's going to take 4 years. I think you'll be able to tell whenever that first series, that first snap, you'll be able to know.
I think 4 years is too long, but I don't think the first series will be able to tell you either, because that goes back to my thing. That goes back to conditioning. Because the first snap against UCLA, they didn't look terrible, but by the fourth quarter they did, because they weren't conditioned. You know what I mean? So maybe by the end of the game you'll know something, but you know what I mean. You got to at least see what that conditioning looking like.
Man, in them trenches, bro. In them trenches, you either gonna get hit, you either gonna be hitting them first, or they gonna hit you. That's what I'm talking about.
You can be doing that, then you can gas out at halftime. You know what I mean? So then you ain't got
that's why you got a rotation. That's why you got a rotation.
That's why conditioning matters too. It's strength and conditioning. It ain't just strength, coach.
I feel you.
All right. So changes that we've seen, or what we said, attention to detail. Daniel saying strength and conditioning. Two that I saw that stand out: communication and autonomy. The autonomy between not having your head coach necessarily in every drill, in every position, is something that stood out to me. It makes me think about and I know y'all remember, Preston. You may know this one. If you don't want to have your producer all in the video dancing, come to Death Row. That's what stands out to me. But the autonomy. So that kind of leads to the next. What else is outside of coaching style? What's something that's standing out in film that you're seeing, maybe amongst the players?
In film right now, it's hard to tell. There definitely seems to be a high level of intensity, and I think that speaks to a lot of guys wanting to come out and prove something. I don't think there's anybody on this roster outside of Keishon Butte who could just sit out this year and have a high draft pick. I think that a lot of these dudes are looking to prove something, looking to earn something. Practices seem organized. There does seem to be a lot of, from the player interviews, a lot of small detail stuff they're working on. They're tackling right now, full tackling. Yeah. Those are the kind of things that stand out to me as necessarily different. Like I said, practice film, no matter who the coach is, what regime it is, it kind of looks like practice film. So we'll have to see. I'm excited to see what they look like when they open it up and do some game type scrimmaging, like the spring game. That's what I'm looking forward to see, is how it looks in a cohesive unit. They're also bouncing guys around a lot of rotation right now, because they're trying to figure out who's the guy, who's who.
Yeah. Well, look, I've seen some practice film, and let me tell you something. Jacqueline Roy, the 3-1A boy, looks amazing. All right.
I'm hoping this is the year.
Whooping everybody's butt.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Him and Jacoby and Guillory.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you said 3-1A boy and you said Roy, I was like, he got to be talking about Guillory.
I don't know. I mean, but look, both of them are kind of in that same boat of highly recruited guys who've been serviceable, but we're really waiting for them to emerge as that guy, and we even saw flashes of Mason Smith being that guy last year. So I think the big boys in the trenches, you should be in good shape. We'll see which, who gets the starter spots, but you'll be able to rotate, no doubt.
Yeah, that's my thing, is the competition, bro. Almost at every position group, every position group has a competition right now.
There's very few jobs locked down. Very few. So, and I think that goes to what I was telling you earlier. a lot of guys are vying for a spot.
Exactly.
Nobody's got nothing locked down yet.
And that's what brings that intensity day in and day out. You know what I mean? Because everybody feels like if they slip up, if they had one bad day, then the next guy's right there at their heels. So they're bringing it day in and day out.
Man, I can also tell you, I know I've said in the past that, it's very hard for a freshman offensive lineman to actually come in and start. But, man, watching Will Campbell in practice, kid looks good. He looks physical. He is dominant. But
sharp.
Quincy Wiggins, of course, everyone knows he looks great. But
look like he was building the lab, man.
Yeah, he does. But I think his technique, I think he'll be hey, relax.
Jaquaylin. Jaquaylin.
Not Jacqueline like everybody like to call him. Jaquaylin.
Just call him Jackie.
Jacqueline.
Same thing, Jackie.
Oh man, that dude. All right, when he gonna jack you up. That's what all right, Preston. I appreciate you coming on. Our last topic that we're gonna talk about with you, the 3 transfers that we had this week. Josh White, Quentin Skinner. Quentin Skinner is a long snapper because I know some people are like, who?
Yeah.
And
the Buford dynasty ends.
Yeah, man.
And the one that's probably the most controversial. I tell you what, this name has been the most controversial for a walk on that I've ever seen. Pig Cage.
Well, y'all saw the name itself actually started a Twitter feud. One of those Arkansas fans in the space. They're like, y'all calling this the Pig Cage?
It was
coming
like
after us Arkansas fans. It's like, dude, that's his name. No, that can't be. No, it's really Pig Cage. Here you go. I'll start with Pig Cage. He's the most entertaining. He's either a Heisman winner or never going to play his snap. You don't get in between. So look, that one kind of caught me off guard because I thought he played serviceably in the bowl game. I don't think he's a pure cover corner. I don't think he's an every down kind of guy, but I could see he had some real tenacity and some real grit to him. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to me like you could use him as a nickelback in some spots and get some action out of him. I suppose he must have had a talk with some defensive coaches about their plan with him, and it seemed to not align with what he was looking for himself. So decided to take another route. Quentin Skinner, you kind of saw that one coming when they brought in Slade Roy from Eastern Carolina. I mean, you're taking transfer long snappers. How many long snappers are you going to keep on the roster? You know what I mean? Like, all right, okay, 2 scholarship long snappers. Okay, I remember at the time when he signed Slade Roy, there wasn't a lot going on with recruiting for Brian Kelly at the time. A lot of people were like, "Are you kidding me? A long snapper? We got 50 roster spots to fill, and you're bringing in a long snapper? Come on, we already had a long snapper." So you kind of saw that one on the wall. Shout out to a decade of Buford High School long snappers at LSU coming to an end.
Buford, Georgia.
Yeah, and Josh White, they brought in a ton of backers. And the only thing I can think of is, he hadn't made too many plays in his time here and must have just gotten buried on the depth chart because there is a lot of bodies now at linebacker. They need some quality players to step up, like I expect Mike Jones will do fairly well at.
Who?
I don't know who. I've never heard of him. But Mike Jones. Guys like maybe Harold Perkins. I could see something like that. Getting scared off by a guy like Harold Perkins coming in and thinking maybe things are just going to get worse as he comes around, and I'm gonna just try my chances somewhere else because there's really no penalty for doing so.
Do y'all remember the day where we didn't have enough linebackers? So we had a bunch of linebackers the next year, then we didn't have enough D linemen. So we got a bunch of D linemen the next year, then we didn't have enough cornerbacks. So okay.
It's like Will Wade overcompensating for defense, right?
Kick the man while he's down, Dan. Kick the man while he's down.
Hey, that's one of my things I've been complaining about with the recruiting class under Coach O is the composition of your recruiting class. Yeah. You're not signing enough players of each class. Like I think every single recruiting class you should be able to field a football team with. You got 25 spots, go get your 22 and use the 3 extra spots to fluff some extra spots that you need some depth at.
Yeah, you
Well,
should
I
never
think
have a
too-
class with 2 offensive linemen or 2
I agree.
defensive
I
linemen.
agree. I think that's a terminable offense.
We had one offensive lineman sign 1 year.
Yeah.
One?
Yeah.
I think it was
one.
two.
I think it was.
Okay.
I think it was 2. Yeah, I think
Okay,
it was
2.
2.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
that
two,
correct?
and they weren't like highly recruited guys either. Right?
Right.
We're talking, a lot of like 3-star,
Mhm.
lower developmental
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
developmental guys is
I
how
want
we'll say
to
it.
go back to Pierre Cage, man. Preston, that kid was never going to see the field. If he was to see the field next season, besides being on kickoff, we're in a bad position. We're in a bad position.
So what about on a 3rd and short type 3 wide
up by
package
5
running,
touchdowns
and you want to
in the
get an
fourth quarter.
aggressive blitzer?
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Dan. Let me ask you this. Since there was an open competition, if he would have beat out somebody, do you still feel like he should, just because he was a walk-on? Like,
If he would have beat out somebody, but it's apparent that he felt like he wasn't going to beat out anyone.
is that the
that's why
case,
he
or
transferred.
is that the case?
It was also apparent he didn't.
He wanted
have
a scholarship. He wanted a
division-
scholarship.
It was apparent that at this point in time he did not have the coverage skills ready to be like on an island with SEC receivers. I think that was pretty apparent in the bowl game, and he was going to have to grind and earn it and wait and do some stuff. And I think honestly, his decision came down to a talk with him and Matt House and said, "Coach, are you planning on doing any kind of schemes where you're going to have a blitzing nickelback looking to cause chaos?" And he was probably like, "Honestly, no. And if we did, probably not you. So it might be in your best interest to go somewhere." He might also have, wanted to go somewhere to earn a scholarship. Maybe another school's willing to pay for him at this time.
That's what I think it was, because he was a walk-on last year, you know what I mean, and having to pay for yourself 2 years in a row. I think,
but it's
that's
April.
What it was.
It's April, guys. Why not finish spring? Why not play on TV? Get you some more film. Because you can't enroll at any school.
Let me ask you though, realistically, how many of these transfer announcements actually make a ton of sense to you? And I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of times, I remember, who was that defensive end? Jordan Allen, who transferred. He was there for 1 week of spring practice, and he noticed this ain't going the way I wanted to go. So once you make that decision, go. Like once you've realized that you need to go somewhere else, you just make it. So that's why so many of these transfer decisions, very rarely does the timing make sense. It's just more times than not, it's kind of like, oh, you did that this week? Oh,
yeah.
Like that Bama quarterback a couple years back transferred after week 2.
Yeah, but I'm only saying it for scholarship, the scholarship argument. Like if he was that in need of a scholarship, you don't transfer in April.
I mean,
unless after that first week of practice, it didn't go the way you want, and your talks with coaches didn't go the way you want, and it didn't look like you were going to be able to earn one at LSU. So go ahead
and month.
Or you can go ahead and enter your name.
Why wait a month if you know after a week?
You can go ahead and enter your name in the portal and start having conversations with other coaches who and kind of beat everybody else to the punch, and you know what I mean, and kind of have your name out there before everybody else.
Not to mention, I mean, if you get somewhere, say next week, you get to participate in their spring ball.
I mean, you can do that.
Why not?
I mean, because
it's not like it's an NCAA event. Anybody gets to participate in spring ball.
Yeah, but can you enroll? You can't enroll in the school right now, though.
I think some of those West Coast schools are.
It depends on if they're on the
quite a bit. I don't know.
If they're like, it depends on a whole bunch of stuff. They're a quarter system. If they're, it's all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's all kind of stuff that it comes down to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, Preston, we appreciate having you. Having you on, coming on, talking with us. We'll have to bring you back sometime, and we'll definitely be ready.
Makes up for beating us in the playoffs, bro.
You're welcome, man. I hope you enjoyed extra time with your family in December of 2008.
Now it just made me go to basketball practice.
Hold up, wait.
This guy right here. I should have never said that.
He need to send us that helmet.
Yeah, lying. That'll really make up for it.
You want to see something?
Oh, this guy got a class ring.
There ain't no class ring. Now, you wouldn't
Yeah.
know about what these are because you lost. But
That's right.
ooh, look at that boy.
What is that?
What's that? Ooh, that looks like a
You
state
played at
championship
Turles
ring.
Catholic?
No, he went to
Look
Holy
at that.
Cross.
See, that's the dome. I know you don't recognize it, but that's the super dome on the
That's
side
'cause
there.
Yeah. He went to
Preston,
Christian
what
Light.
Light.
position
Ring,
you
buddy.
played? Preston,
He
what
went to-
position you played?
I
He
was
was
offensive
offensive
tackle.
Oh man, get out of here.
Hey, who else has one? Who else has one? I'll wait for yours.
All right.
Yeah,
You can't
Yo,
hate on- hey, what's that
are
thing
we
about
done
the
with
club?
Preston? Are we done
You
with Preston?
can't hate on us in the club. You ain't even in. You're on the outside.
On that note,
All right.
That's real.
I'm just
Thank you
I'm just
again.
messing
I
with you,
appreciate
man.
it though, bro. Appreciate
Much
it.
love, man.
Thank
Oh,
you,
yeah,
man.
so-
All right.
Have a good one. Hey, send us that helmet.
Look, man, it goes to the highest bidder.
All right.